Hey everybody, it's Rob here. We just got the patch notes for the new patch coming on Monday, and the Druid player base is in some big discussions here, and I think we have a meme here to perfectly describe this. The Druid is looking a bit in despair. Expect getting all the buffs, but it might not be enough. Like, there's a lot of positive stuff, but there's also a lot of comments in the community that it's just not enough to cut it for the Druid. And I've just been crunching some numbers here, and I'm working on an updated tier list that is going to come out tomorrow probably. And we've been looking at the top clears. I haven't changed everything yet. But yeah, it looks like Druid got a couple of tiers buff, but it seems to be nowhere near enough. Despite not getting a single nerf, only getting buffs to some pretty cool stuff. It just doesn't seem to be enough, and there is a pretty cool video here from Ace of Spades, Goblin Inc. Balding streamer loses his remaining hairline regarding the Druid patch notes. There's like a very emotional reaction that I'm going to link in the description as well, and there's a more like, you know, leaned back, and we're going to watch this one with quite some critique, and he's also explaining why those buffs that have been made don't seem to be enough for the Druid. We'll see on Monday, but let's listen to what he has to say here.
All right, I am recording the patch notes because I have unlisted the previous video. I was raging on it. So
you go here.
I'm gonna try to be more constructive. If you wanna see me raging like
still has a bit of hair,
a child, you can though check the description. Let's go over the changes and why they're horrible.
Okay, the changes are horrible. Again, it's only positive changes, but it does not seem to be anywhere close to enough according to my numbers as well. Every class is doing like 140 plus, and the Druid is stuck in 120, and now maybe it is gonna do 2 or maybe 3 tiers higher.
And talk about the state of the class pretty much. So we have the first thing, which is the gift of the stag. This is gonna be a recurrent situation where, well, they're increasing the maximum spirit from 20 to 40. Is that gonna be used ever by anyone? No.
I don't really think Druid has anything that really scales with max spirit the way that Barb can scale Fury with Ramalaldi's, or, you know, other classes can scale. Like the Necromancer can scale max essence and stuff.
To make changes that no one is ever gonna use for any build, it's an issue. You're wasting time, you're wasting developers' effort, and it's just very, it shows.
I mean, this guy, guys, here, just for some background, if you don't know him, Ace of Spades, he's been playing Druid a lot. He probably plays as much Druid and enjoys it as much as I play Barb. And he's been one of the top players for a long time. He's also been one of the first guys that pushed the Shred Druid all the way into upper 12 tier 25 and had multiple like top, and I think even at the end, like the very, very top clear. So he knows what he's talking about, especially for the end game and in terms of build making.
A lack of care and understanding. You are just trying to increase something.
He has many amazing builds on mobility.
Till, you know, till it's useful. Yeah, you think that maybe if I keep buffing it, eventually it gets used. It does not work like that. A lot of the changes that they make are worthless because of this. Thorns, for example, the amount of prickled skin thorn is increased by 100%. This is like, maybe leveling, you could maybe take this, right? But it's really not.
I mean, Thorns on any other class, but Barbarian just feels meh.
Something you should put in patch notes. It's not something you should have a developer input in the game. It's a waste of time.
I mean, I don't know. Like, he's very harsh with this, but I think this is not really like something that takes a lot of development time, right? Like, they just change the number.
Advantageous Beast. Previously, reduced the duration of card control effect by 15%. Now, you gain 15% movement speed. This is one change that, you know, now at least you took a look at it, and it went from something
movement speed is always
at
cool.
least might have some niche cases. This is a better change than Gift of the Stag, but still, you know, probably gonna need a rework for Boons. It's kind of useless, maybe for Gauntlet. The Scythe Talon, crit chance goes from 5 to 10. They're trying to increase their damage. Okay. Iron Feather, 14.
I mean, these changes are good. It's like on the Necromancer
swooping
level.
attacks, 10 to 15%, so pretty much, you know. the same boons will get used that doesn't buff the one that are not gonna get used. Energize, spirit increase from 20 to 30. They are trying to address the spirit issue Druid has by buffing random things. I think reducing the cost of all...
I think the main thing that took away from the Druid spirit on the PTR, we had a lot more resource generation on our two-handers. For example, on Druid, you were just using a staff, a two-handed staff, and it would get like, I think, 30% resource cost reduction, while now you're only getting... good pause. Well, now you're only getting, I think it's 17 or something. So they took away a lot of the resource problems. And, you know, at the start of the season, everybody thought like Druid, or like before the season even started, many people, including myself, thought that the Druid is one of the top classes. And yeah, we didn't really know, like this resource cost reduction here, I think it used to be about double, like 28 base, and it's now only 14. I think this would be a cool thing to look at for resource cost reduction for the Druid, like just buffing this again. Because, like, you know, the main builds are just based on generators right now in other classes. But Druid still needs this resource cost reduction. I think that would be a good change there.
All the skills we have would have been a better choice. There's some
Druid Spirit Management is a pain.
Uber items that I skipped over, but we can go and take a look. For example, Ring of the Starless Sky, which now has more cost reduction and more damage. Still, the item is useless for us. Same thing for the Another Visage, which is actually a bit better for Rogue, but a 50% damage increase.
This one used to be the best one for Shred with Blurred Beast.
For us, does not do anything. I think it's overall, though, a good change. If you're trying to make some poison builds out of Another Visage for Rogues, this could make sense. The buff to healing potions and the legendary aspect protector do not make any sense. Nor do really do anything. I mean, yeah, the potion was kind of useless, but I think it's still going to be largely useless. Because you have 100,000 HP. So, you know, buffing the potion by 200%.
Talk about Whirlwind Weevil again.
A meaningful change. Let's keep going. So, like we talked about, Energize is useless as a buff. We would rather have passive resource generation, or we would rather have the cost of our skills reduced. Or maybe some talents that reduce the cost of our skills. Bolster, Fortify amount increased. Again, they see that maybe, you know, let's buff this. Let's see what it does for them. Do we really need more Fortify?
Yeah.
No. Like, it's like, again, you're wasting patch notes. Obsidian Slam.
Again, I don't really think this takes a lot of effort to change the number.
Required to guarantee overpower reduced from 20 to 10.
I want to hear him talk about rabies.
They're trying to buff Pulverize and other builds without really understanding. The build is doing 0 damage almost.
Yeah, he made like a full video, so here on the rabies stuff, he made a full video about rabies, and I think, correct me in the comments or in the chat, but I think he was not able to clear Pit 100 with it. So now buffing it by 25% is not gonna help the build, I guess.
So buffing it by 25%, not gonna change anything. This
is Ace of Spades.
Not able to clear a Nightmare Dungeon.
One of the top Druid players.
So 25% damage buff is not gonna do anything for us. You need to try the build and then think about, okay, how much damage do I want the build to make?
Yeah, it wasn't Pit 100, it was Nightmare Dungeon 100.
How much do I have to buff it?
I think it's doing like a couple 100,000 dots. You know, meanwhile, the Flay Barb and also the Rogues, they're hitting for hundreds and hundreds of millions or even barbillions.
Reach that point. If you just throw random numbers, it just really shows me that
Druid got buffed from 17
are not
to 18.
putting in the effort. There might be other reasons why they're not doing it. To me, when I see this, I feel like, you know, you're not putting in the effort. Pulverize.
He made quite some good feedback videos. I'm also going to try to link those in the description. Like, he made like a full, like, what's wrong with Druid video, basically.
Sometimes they do this. Like,
obviously, in his opinion, but he is like hundreds and hundreds and probably even thousands of hours of Druid gameplay. And again, one of the top guys there on Druid.
Buff, you know, 76%.
So Pulverize got a massive buff, but as you can also see by my tier list draft here, Pulverize I think I added down here, like, you know, like we have S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and I think Pulverize came all the way down here from the oh my god tier, and it went into like the CAC W tier or something. And here it is now with about 5 tier buff, 76%, plus some boon buffs, plus some passive buffs. But it's always a problem that you can't continuously overpower on Pulverize, especially against high life single targets. You're never going to have overpowers up. And this is what is holding back the build pretty much the most. And yeah, not really having like much of a change there for a single target. It gets a bit more DPS, but yeah, not really like on the level it needs.
Welcome to Goblin Inc. I'm Asus.
Oh, this is the wrong one. This was
again,
the rage
without
one.
Without understanding where
right
the problem is. It can work for, you know, if the class is really OP, like Barbarian, you throw a 900% buff to charge. People play charge barb.
Yeah, how about
That's
a 900% buff to Pulverize? Would that even be too much? I don't think so.
The builder, because the class is really good, but throwing a 76% damage increase to Pulverize is not gonna do anything. Because the
like
build
900% is gonna at least buff it, you know, by like 15 tiers, which it needs.
is falling behind due to the inability to leverage more overpowers and the lack of Thunderstruck and other legendary nodes not being as good at Thunderstruck. So
he's a main druid
now
player, Goblin Inc.
Pulverize is, you know, falling behind. Also the tempering it has, it's very weak. A little bit of a buff if the enemies are stunned. Pulverize now does more damage.
That's good. But it's still,
Now
this is
Pulverize,
still
good
not
player.
helping against the most issue that the Pulverize has. It's not helping against bosses.
A couple of tiers higher.
Or power are stunned. Well, I mean, this one
Nature's
is, but the
Fury,
stunned part.
Passive, they're buffing some of keystones here. So we have Nature's Fury, it goes from 30 to 35. That's a, you know, a good buff and makes Landstorm better, but is not nearly enough to make the build feel better. It would have to be, maybe if it was up to 50 or 60%, you could start.
Guys, he lost his hair due to the patch notes.
Say something, but
Actually, crazy type.
they're very, again, they're doing those small buffs because they do not know where they are. You know, they don't have an idea. Okay, where do I want to go? Play the build, test the build with, you know, take a planner, and you'll see how far you are from your target. Perfect Storm damages 30%. It's more competitive with your Ursian Strength now. So it's a good change because now you can take this on a tornado build.
Yeah, check it out. Give him a like.
Nature's Reach,
thumbs up.
damage to the instant has been increased.
Subscribe.
You know, small percentage here and there. That's a good way, I think.
I think these buffs are super fair, man. Nature's Reach, also the quick shift and these kind of stuff. That's really cool. Even Toxic Claws to a degree, but this one had a long history of being bugged. I remember.
Not enough. So
this one was like disabled like twice or something on launch.
We prefer to take these over Venom on many builds, but it's a buff to some builds. Toxic Claw is another of those buffs where like they see that something does not get used and they try to buff it without understanding that it's completely worthless. And it
it used to be extremely strong, and they had to like, you know, bug fix it because it was like double, triple dipping and all this crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, like it's very hard to have this like multiple sources of damage at the moment.
To be 10x, to maybe be played, even a 10x, I don't think it will be played.
Yeah.
Poison builds.
There's some presses like that on Barb though as well.
For Druid it does not work. The only one that works is the Wind Shear one because the way the damage scales when it comes from an aspect is different. You know, there's some trickery there, but normal poison builds like Rabies, Shred, applying poison.
He still had hair before the patch notes.
Just do not really work well.
Hey, watch the other video, man.
We have
it's his
Shift.
title.
Maximum damage bonus has been increased. The Quick
This
Shift,
is really good.
that's a buff, but
Come on, say it's good. This one is really
one
good.
on top of the other. They're trying to go like that, but they should honestly.
So actually, I calculated this. Like for most of the builds, where were we at? So this is, for example, for Wind Shear. This is like some of the Mafia that's been upgraded. So we get, I think it's Quick Shift plus Natures plus attack speed buffs, and it's actually turning out to be like a 16% damage buff here for the top Wind Shear Druid build. But you know, the current highest clear here is 122 2 from Limona here. Like one of the top clears. And this is still like 20 tiers behind, and now it's getting like 13-16% damage buff. It's like 2 tiers, so now, okay, maybe Druid can do 124. Like, you know, meanwhile, all the other classes are rocking in 140. So this is like kind of the main struggle point here for the Druid players. Again, the entire patch notes was buffs. Buffs, more buffs, and stuff. Like, it only got buffed. There's no nerfs to Druid. And other classes, with especially with Holy Bolt, got a nerf, but still, it just doesn't seem to be quite enough.
Will be on the level of Envenom so that people can stop only needing Envenom amulets. It's the only way to do it, and also the Druid class is severely lacking in damage, so you really have to pump numbers very high to go back to other classes. We are super behind.
I think the worst problem is also on Druid that they are like so pigeonholed into like using Shepherd. You know, this aspect that buffs you damage of core and skills and stuff. Core and wrath skills, I think, when you have more pets. And then you have like 3 skill slots already taken by the pets. And you have like 3 aspects taken. And then you basically have no more flexibility in your build.
Behind. Defensive posture. Increase the amount of fortify that, you know, you get hit. No, sorry.
Okay, he's going over all of this.
Played in a lot of builds. Provocation, among them, the fact that the build pushes away enemies, and also other ones, the build is very clunky now. Again, if you play the build, you would know that this is not going to do anything.
This is about the Landslide stuff. I've seen the Landslide, I think, actually do some pretty crazy stuff against Lilith. But this was pretty much the only good thing I saw. Do I still have this up here? It did some pretty cool stuff. Okay, here, Landslide against Echo of Lilith. Look at this one. So actually, I didn't know this before I watched this. But there is actually some potential in this build, I think. At least on a bit of like boss and stuff. So this is the Landslide Druid, my friends. Killing Uber Lilith. And keep in mind, Uber Lilith is getting a 30% haircut. She's going to lose 30% life. It's going to be even more trivial than it already is. And this is Landslide here with Turel's Might, blasting down Uber Lilith. The phase 1 is like a little bit of an issue. And this is getting like some slide buffs as well. And Lilith is getting a nerf. But still, it's going to be very, very hard. Thank you, Sparrow. It's going to be very, very hard for these builds to kind of rock in the hard end game where it becomes really difficult for DPS. But watch what he does here in phase 2, and this was what really amazed me when I first saw this. It actually kind of rocking. So you see here, he's going to stagger her instantly. He has a lot of stagger on this Landslide build. And he's just going to stagger Lilith, and this is like easy mode Lilith kill. Because, watch what happens. She gets staggered. And then boom, like he unloads his damage with Landslide. And she doesn't even do any skulls. So he basically skips the entire mechanics of the fight. Like, you know these blue skulls now, they used to be red, now they are blue. And there's not even any mechanics. Like, he just has to run around and basically kill her. So Landslide definitely has some potentials. And yeah, I mean, I get it. Like, from Ace, it's like with a lot of passion. And he's very negative about the changes. And I've talked to like many Druid players here, Jonix, and a lot of people came by the stream. And they basically all universally agree that the buffs that are coming to the Druid just ain't enough yet. And this is a pretty cool little trick. I'm also going to link this video in the description. That's a pretty cool way of killing this. It's the Landslide build. And this one looks pretty cool. It's very cool for this kind of content. But again, in high pits, it's also struggling massively. And yeah, don't nerf Landslide. This is getting some slight buffs. But also not really enough. I mean, I think Druid is in an okay state if you're not looking at the other classes, right? But the other classes doing 20 tiers higher because they have some pretty broken, crazy stuff. It doesn't make it feel good for the Druids that are just stuck in 120, where everybody is having fun at 135 or 140 even, or Sorcs in 150.
Subterranean aspect, it's a 5% buff. That's a 5% buff, that's what it does. Aspect of the alpha, you know, it's above 2 pet builds. Our pet build's gonna be now good with a 15% actual damage.
So actually, about the pet builds, we also saw my friend Greg here I think he was pushing the Wolf Companion, currently here in B tier. But he was actually pushing, like, I think in the 115 range. So he completed 115 here on a pet summon wolf only build. So that's pretty cool to see. There is potential on these, but yeah, just 115 is also not really going to cut it much, right? For these kind of builds.
The alpha?
But companion build is playable.
No. So, we use less buffs. Really, I don't know what to say. Unsatiated aspects, short damage, and this has been buffed many times. You know, they could have done. This could be 200% honestly now, and it could have been made 200% on the first time that they did this change, so that they can then work on other things. They keep doing 5% on the same things over and over.
I mean, to be fair, that's what they did with the minions, and at some point it just added up to be viable, and the minion necro that we have right now.
And they're never good. And
but yeah, the pace is a bit of a problem.
And it will keep doing it till it gets good, which is never gonna happen in a realistic time frame. The unsatiated aspect gives 35% now to werewolf skills. It's a little bit hard to read this aspect when you read it in the entirely of its form. You'll see that it's not only for Shred but for all werewolf skills.
I'm still like pretty sad about what they did with Shred, guys. Like Shred Blurred Beast with the teleportation, the movement speed, the crazy damage it had. For me, playing Druid, and I played that build a lot in Avatar of Zia 25, used to be one of the main fun ways I had with Shred. This has been just, I don't know, like so cool. Probably don't have the clip here, but this was like one of the fastest playing and coolest builds. Like you're constantly teleporting and dealing like billions of poison shred damage. That was so much fun, and I think they pretty much over-nerfed that build, man. I really liked Shred.
So it's a buff, and it is now better than Retaliation.
No, it's
for any
Poison
build
Shred,
that
not
uses,
Sonic. I don't know whatever that is.
Tempest Roar. Paragon, instead of doing changes to things that we asked, and that frankly every Druid player knows, like you know, Airframe Devastation being capped at 40% while Thunderstruck is uncapped. You know that, you know, you are maybe a dead.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, Thunderstruck being uncapped, I think is another whole balance discussion issue. Even though Druid being so weak right now, but it's very hard to balance a class when one of the passives just does triple damage to all lightning builds, and yeah, the Earth is 1.4. But it's one of the few passives, the Thunderstruck, that is not kept.
Watching this,
which is like a blessing for the Druid right now because it's in such a weak state.
You're maybe a student, you play a couple of hours, you're not a developer, you're not a Diablo 4 expert, and you know that. And they don't, but they get paid for that job. It's tough. That's a tough critique, but
definitely has a lot of negativity in here.
As has been beaten down,
it mainly comes from just a point of frustration, right, of the class at the moment. Like Druid, ever after the Shred, has been in a pretty rough state, I think.
The problem has been beaten down by the community, and if you do not know that by now, I will question how much you actually care. Dominate Glyph, bonus damage. Well, sorry, well, it's damage increase to 10, constricting 10.
Negativity for a very good reason. The best character gets the highest buffs. This is a big L. Well, I mean, you know, again, the entire changes on Druids are positive. There's not a single nerf in there. Right? There's no nerf whatsoever. All they did is make it better from what it is right now. And I understand why people are complaining about that still, because the Druid is just so much weaker than every other class, and they're just buffing it a little bit. What they kind of expected, like, you know, to be on the same level, is just not gonna cut it for the Druid player base, right? And I understand where this is coming from, like a place of passion and stuff, but it's definitely positive changes for the Druid. The expectation was just, we need more, and this is probably the truth. The class needs more buffs, right? Ultimately. Like, there's been many memes made about it, and yeah, Druid players are not really happy with the patch. And yes, I can totally see why. That's why I want to raise some awareness for this issue. But it's not all negative, guys. They made some good changes, for sure. It's just not enough.
50%. the constricting tendrils legendary node that never gets used, they know it never gets used, right? So they buff it by something that they think is big, 30%. But when you buff something that does 0 by X, it's still 0. Same.
It's the old meme, man. Druid does 17 damage. You buff it by 0. It's still only a 0.
Issue with, you know, 90% of this.
Or by 10%, it's still 0.
Dominate Glyph, again, giving you like a little bit of damage. They do not want to go overboard because they don't really know what they're doing. That's my feeling. It's...
I mean, Dominate Glyph is fine. I mean, I'd be super happy on this on Bob.
Stand
but
out. And probably if the
it helps Pulverize even a bit more.
Mad about it.
I think Pulverize in the end gets like a 2x or something.
Not really gonna like me much, but you know, they do really good job with certain things. Like the game has improved a lot in season 4, but
oh, I like this part.
Really bad balance.
Yeah, I think like Loot Reborn and the game is moving in an awesome direction. But yeah, maybe on the Druid part, there's a lot of things that are still where the class still needs help, and certainly hoping if it's not going to be the mid-season, then hopefully it's going to be season 5 where we get some love.
Tormented boss, are they held reduced?
Yeah, this change. This change I don't like at all. I don't understand.
Yeah, they were already a good point. Health and damage levels have been reduced in the pit. Adjustment is most significant. Players approaching tier 60. Bug fixes. Only bolts like 0 damage was scaling unintentionally high when it was triggered from passes and necromancer's minions. Fix the bug. Casting boulders with Almond Stone will cause it to not cast at all.
Yes!
Maybe they're talking about the tempering. I don't
man, the Dolmen Stone and boulders, man, has not been working since the season start, man.
No. But anyway, boulders now have a limit of 10 and the damage is increased by 10% for each boulder that you cast. The build is still useless and really not viable, but you know, they did an effort.
But it looks cool.
Still, without having tried the build and understanding the issues of the build and how clunky it is and all the problems it has, it will
the problem to me is on the boulder build that it just does knockbacks, man. The knockbacks on the melee build are so annoying. I hate whenever they do this on Barb as well. They do something that fears the enemy. And I'm a melee guy, you know, like if I'm gonna fear something, how am I gonna kill it? With my axe or with my sword, right? So that is always like the biggest, like the boulder being a melee build, knocking back the targets out of the boulder range. There's kind of a negative anti-synergy there. Like just remove the fucking knockback.
We played. It's another patch that we got with buffs to boulder, sorry, bug fix to boulder, and a buff to rabies. Like, I want to really stress out how they're bug fixing boulder again for them. How many bug fixes we had? I think 3 or 4 this season only.
That's true, actually.
And all of those bug fixes could have been done when they released Dolmen Stone if they tried the build. But they have not done that.
Well, on the PTR, guys.
And there is more bugs. So, I mean, next patch, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a 20% damage buff to rabies and another bug fix to boulder. I do not know why they refuse to talk.
But anyways, guys, on the PTR, we had a ton of fun on Druid. So why can't we have any of that? Druids doing billions of damage? I mean, again, this was based on a bug. But this was the most fun I had on Druid for quite some time. And just, I don't know, man, make some crazy stuff. Like, let them have fun with it. I mean, I certainly had a lot of fun on the PTR. And this was just amazing, man. Like, this was just like, look at this. Like, just, this was the boulder build, man. And boom. That was fun. I mean, I just like this like pro stuff on the PTR. It was like a lot of fun, man. And yeah, the DPS numbers were ramping, but like this stuff obviously was too OP, right? But I don't know, like some build based around this, like your Hurricane stacking your boulder, like why was that mechanic so bad? Obviously, it shouldn't have done this numbers, but it could have done like some numbers. No? I don't know. It was a pretty cool build, I think, and there's certainly a lot of things that they could do with the Druid. Again, I'm not really like the biggest fan.
People
of like, you know, like the negative outlooks. But I see when it's coming from a place of passion for sure. And Ace, again, is one of the top druids here that is creating content. I'm gonna link the video, you can check it out. He also has a lot of amazing videos about druid on his channel here, where there is just like a lot of like things that I think that I agree with, that are like wrong with the classes and that could be improved here. Again, the patch has been a major W for everybody. There's almost no nerfs except for Holy Bolts, and I'm gonna make a separate video about that as well. But there's basically no nerfs, and even Druid has been buffed throughout the board. The buffs are just not sufficient, and again, looking at the draft here, I need to move these builds down. Looking at the draft here, the Druid is still somewhere down here in C, maybe in B tier, but there's no way it's gonna move into S tier or even on the A tier, right? But there's definitely still some stuff to improve, and somehow we actually predicted the future here with this a funny meme here where the Druid is looking a bit of despair, even though getting all the buffs. But we'll see, guys. Maybe for Season 5 we're gonna see some more Druid love here, and I'm staying positive. I think the game is moving in a very good direction, and even if you are a Druid enjoyer, the patch is not negatively impacting you. It's gonna be positive for you. Like, there's only buffs again, but they are not enough, and maybe we'll get some more buffs. I just wanted to, you know, share some more thoughts on this, and wanted to let you know. And again, you can see the initial reaction here from Ace. I've watched this, and it was like some parts of it, and I definitely feel it, man. It's just coming from a place of passion. He loves Druid, he likes Druid, and I believe he wants to make the game a better place and the Druid in a better spot compared to the other classes. And I think he's raising some excellent points. So check out the video. I'm going to link that again in the description. And yeah, I'm going to have the updated tier list here soon, guys. Stay tuned for that, and I'll see you soon. GG. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.